are more than welcome, very welcome to the Coffee at 11 show, episode 65 of the Coffee at 11 show, brought to you by Wig.ie SME Peer Support. Delighted to have you join us here this morning. It's a Friday morning, and I'd love to welcome to the cafe my friend and special guest, Janie Lazar. Janie, please say hello and show us a coffee cup or mug if you have one with you, please.
Hello and good morning. And my little coffee mug, I don't know how close that's going to come. Up a little bit, maybe. The tortoise and the hare. And it's very topical for me because I am a slow learner, a really slow learner. I think one of the things that I've discovered is that, you know, it's the old thing, everything does happen for a reason and you can't really see why at the time. Goodness, where else to start? I really don't know.
Before you start, and Jenny, thank you for that. That's a lovely introduction. Let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit about Janie, so we'll sort of set the scene, if that's okay. Then we'll bring the lady in herself. So Janie Lazar, obviously, is her name. Conversation Matters is her business. She actually calls her business much more than words, and we'll find out a little more about that as we go through the conversation today. She says she does three things. She helps people communicate with greater confidence around personal development, and she also works with training for non-native English-speaking executives, and that's the much more than words piece. Coaching to boost confidence in problem solving, one of two ways, on a personal or professional basis when someone needs to reframe their life and move themselves on, so coaching for transformative change. And then through specialist coaching, helping someone find, weave and deliver their story, and I've got personal experience of that. Going from room to Zoom, going from head to TEDx, from page to stage. Surprising too, from screen to stage, now working online, of course. She's also a celebrant and a humanist, focusing on end of life. And her passion, her real joy, and we're going to get this towards the end of the conversation, Janie, is Young ChangeMakers. It's about the next generation and leaving a legacy. So really excited to talk about that. And how long established, she says, great answer. Seems like forever in some shape or form. Now only herself. Look, we'll hear about it all. Something that everybody knows about Janie, how much I hide away in that I'm not a natural networker. In fact, I avoid it. I'm dodging a couple of silver bullets. I'm ready to finally weave my own story for this next stage of life in the full belief the best is yet to come. Janie Lazar, you're very welcome to the cafe and to the Coffee at 11 show. So in your own words, Janie, please, and Eamon has some slides lined up and we sort of pop them in and take them back out as the conversation unfolds. So we're going to go right back to those years, please. Bring us right back to as early as you want. And how did Janie Lazar begin to form, please?
Goodness, where to start I think one of the hardest things is when you look back at your own life. And I suppose, unlike many of the guests that you've had on the show, was not born in Ireland. My life began in North Wales, and I can't sing for toffee. And a very different upbringing in that I have two older sisters, 6 and 7 years older than me, and you always remain the oldest throughout your life. The youngest, sorry. See, nervous already. I can help other people, can't help myself. I had a very different education from my sisters, and it's when you look at that you realize the impact that education has on people's lives, and that the validation that brings. I was sent away, I was dispatched to boarding school. I'm very grateful to my mother because despite, and I think my accent has tempered over the years, but I sounded very, I was like the poshy. And it's a good reminder that, you know, don't judge a book by its cover and all the things that we know about. I was very different from my family. I went through boarding school from age 11 to 18, came out so innocent, so naive, so unworldly. And I was always the little girl in the background. In my early years at home, I totally lacked confidence. Is be good, stay in the background, don't create trouble. Because my parents separated when I was 1. We moved from North Wales to London. And my mother, as I say, this will probably go all over this space, and it'll be how not to tell your own story. She managed to get a grant because she was a single parent. She had 4 or 5 jobs. I never really saw my mum, and she thought the best thing was that I was looked after. I can remember she would have the porridge pot in the double broiler on the stove. This is when I was maybe 8, and she'd already have gone to work to do the first of a few jobs before her day job. And she obviously decided it was best for me to be away at school. There was a grant to send me away. Goodness, thanks to London in some shape or form. And that was the beginning of a very different education, how to survive in a girls' boarding school that was perceived to be posh, but we had very little in the school. Fast forward, I came out at 18 knowing very, very little. I was naive about the world, naive about the boys, but here I was poised with confidence, able to do all sorts of things. And in fact, I knew how to do nothing.
If I may, I chose that photograph specifically for.
Well, thank you for that, because I'd completely forgotten about it.
Yeah.
And it makes me very emotional to see it, because it was, go on, stand out there, put the food in your hands, and we'll take a photo. No, in the limelight, no.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful picture, and I when I saw it first on social media, I made contact with Janie and said it was just gorgeous, including if you look at the gentleman behind in their, the trench coat there, there's a sort of time stamp to this. It's timeless London back in the day, and it's just gorgeous. It's just beautiful. And you've taken us through your early years. I think, Eamon, you've got a lovely slide of Janie in Paris. And we'll just have a quick look at that, and you can talk us around it, because I presume this around the time, there you go, beautiful.
Yeah.
I presume this around the time when you've been going out of school and into the world.
It was. I went in and out of college. It was the time when the European Union was being formed, and it was be a secretary. And to cut a very long story short, I think I did a short course, and the teacher at the time came round to my mother and said, Mrs. Lazar, I'm terribly sorry to tell you, but your daughter will never make a secretary. I was meant to be bilingual and, shorthand and goodness knows what else. And I was quite relieved at that. Went back to college, did contemporary European studies, bottled out of that because it was all about economics. And I had thought that the course would be delivered in French, which was my love. I had a superb French teacher at school, which inspired me. And I swapped over and did pure French. The sadness was after the course, I never used it. To get a job using French at the time, you had to have experience. How do you get experience at something you love if you can't do it? Fast forward again, I then fell into an ad agency because the teaching laws in England had changed at the time, and you couldn't teach without doing yet another year at college. And I thought, I can't keep studying. This is ridiculous. And yet when I look back on my life, that's what I've kept doing. I keep going back and learning. So I fell into advertising, worked my way through PR, through sales promotion, through direct marketing, advertising. Spent a lot of time in what I saw was a very hateful world. It wasn't about what you did. To work hard was not enough. It was all about the politics. And, even looking back, I can still remember some of the conversations of odious bosses that I had in my head. And it took me years to get rid of them, because it was always, it said something to me somewhere, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. Your work isn't good enough. And so again, back to the confidence, back to that girl in whether it's the sandals or the T-bar shoes, just when will I ever be good enough? Goodness.
Let me come in and just, thank you indeed, Sarah. Thank you indeed, Sarah Ward caught the moment there beautifully. And when will you ever be good enough? Here's the problem, you always have been, right? You always have been enough and more than enough. However, society for some reason made you feel otherwise. And sorry to hear that has been the case. You are who you are, and got a role to play and you're playing it beautifully. And I loved the introduction where you said that you had a scattered life, which brought you to where you are today. That's just a beautiful turn of phrase. I love your use of language. Odious bosses. There's a phrase. Right?
And they were.
We've got other language to talk about bosses that we don't like over here, but odious bosses is lovely. But there's a sort of sadness, dare I say it, in that not feeling enough or good enough. And yet you've gone on to do phenomenal work. And I don't know that you realize how phenomenal the work is. We touched on it yesterday, 100-year work. We'll get to ChangeMakers in a little while, but can you take us, as I understand it, and Eamon's going to line up a slide here in a second, as I understand it, the advertising period went on for a period of time. How did you then get into TEDx? How did you first do TEDx talk, if you wouldn't mind?
Oh my goodness. It was culture night in Ireland, and I had been piloting I suppose what you would call a personal development program for non-native language speakers, because I was coming across so many people who didn't have the confidence to speak in English here in Ireland. And what had happened was they would get the jobs, but they would never be able to contribute, be part of a team. And so having qualified as a coach, I could see all of the things that, if you like, corporates were looking for. But these people were being overlooked. They may fail at an interview, they may get the job, but they would never be promoted. They would never be able to make the full contribution. So I was piloting, if you like, building confidence through personal development, although you could never call it that because people would never come to your courses. And I had the most amazing group here. And we're sitting here in the cottage, and one of them said to me, when are you next going to give a talk? And something made me say, I don't know, but I barely whispered it. One day I'd love to give a TED talk. I mean, exactly. It was just weird. And then a few weeks later, something flashed up on Facebook, and the graphic was of different flags of different nationalities. And the theme was identity. And I just thought, got to do it. Got online, applied, got a last minute slot. I think they were desperate at that stage to fill the last slot. And I think I attended one workshop that they ran. I have no real memory of doing the TEDx, I have to say, and that's no word of a lie. The only memory I have is looking down and seeing the clock come to be at 0 and thinking, I've got to hurry up now, I've got to get off. And that was the start of it. It happened at a time when I was going through a lot of personal changes. These changes happen to everyone. I'd been through various different things. And I suppose that was the turning point. That was in the October. The following February, I woke up one morning and I just thought, TEDx Dunlaoughaire. We've got to have it here. Bang, online, bang, go. And that's the story of my life. Something happens and it feels right. I don't do the sums. I don't do the vision planning. It just feels right. It's taken me this long to start recognizing, listen. Applied for the license, had no idea where it was going to go, how I would pull it off.
And BB Baskin was our guest the other day in the cafe, and she basically subscribes to your view of the world, which is like, don't worry about planning. Just, she didn't quite use the term listen, but I think that's what's happening, Janie. I think you're listening to the universe, and the universe is saying, okay, Janie, now's your time. And without thinking about it, you jump in. And it's only when you're standing on the red dot, whatever the red dot is, right, for you at any given moment, you're thinking, shoot, what do we do now? Right? That's my sense of it. But there's a beauty in it. There's a fluidity in it. And that's how you and I met, of course, through TEDx Dunlaoughaire. We'll touch on that in a little while. But between TEDx Drogheda and TEDx Dunlaoughaire, did you work with groups in the interim?
A couple of groups. And it's a long journey because, again, you're digging deep. And I suppose during that time, what I realized was I love working on the one hand at a corporate level where you can work one-to-one with somebody who, no matter how senior they are, they've got the same doubts. So working one-to-one with somebody on a keynote that has to do so many different things, or it could be somebody who's a line manager. It all comes down to that confidence, but finding that story, weaving that story, making them be themselves, if you giving them permission. So coming back to your question, I always get distracted. Groups, that's when the magic happens. You know, like you in the cafe, with groups, all you do is you act as a conduit. You're the one who is guiding that and helping things happen. But it's the dynamic of any group that makes things happen. And that's really, if you like, going back to much more than words, that was launched with Andrea Goldman, who's standing on my right in that photograph. That was another group that we piloted and tried it. People of all nationalities, people who have their own stories, and to give confidence. But it's the dynamic of the group that determines the real success of each of them, which is why you need to get everyone's buy-in, which is why each of them matter. Everyone matters. And I suppose, and I had a feeling this would happen, I'll throw in this little bit of nugget, the bit of this, I can't even talk today. I am lost for words. Words are failing me. Shame on me. I was quite ill last year, and I've dodged a few silver bullets, and I am very lucky to have dodged them. But it was only coming through just before COVID, when I was recuperating, that I began to accept the fact that I mattered. Even though I would always tell everyone else, you're important, accept help, allow these things to happen. And it goes back to childhood. It's that pride, it's the independence. I can do this on my own, I don't need anybody. Why should anyone help me? Why should I matter? And there's, you know, this could turn into a therapy session, and, you know, that's not the point of it. But as a wise woman said just a very short while ago, put the tears behind the ears. Biddy, I will take that with me.
Beautiful, beautiful.
But everyone matters, and that's what I've learned. And giving people time is the greatest gift of all.
And having known you for the last year or so, pleasure knowing you for the last year or so, and you give everybody time, everybody. But what I'm hearing here, dare I say it, is that you're giving everybody time except perhaps Janie Lazar. And, you know, you spend all of your time, energy and love, right? Minding everybody else and making sure they're confident, you know, that their words come out, and by your own admission today, you're hitting a few speed bumps, but that's okay. It's 100% okay, because it's real. And that's what the Coffee at 11 show is about, real people coming on and being real and saying, hey, I'm not perfect. Yeah. I know you're perfect and I'm not perfect, but you know what? You're worth it and I'm worth it. And everybody in the cafe here today is worth it. And we are all enough. That's what we need to realize. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Absolutely, for everybody in the cafe today, everybody who's listening to this. Janie, lovely story. It's gorgeous, and thank you for being here and bringing us through it, and being open and honest and vulnerable. So with the tears behind the ears, move on. Where are we going next?
Goodness, I'm back, as you say, please tell me about TEDx and the Young ChangeMakers. Back to that first year, had no idea how it's going to happen, got the license at the end of April, went to beg for the money from Dunlaoughaire because I knew somehow I needed money. And goodness, this was the team. I went to speak to Patricia in the lexicon. She's on the right there. Sue Adams, who also gave her TEDx in Ballybuffet, sent me a message and said, anything I can do to help. And with me, everything begins with a conversation. It is that time you take. Sue and I met, and I just said, I've got this crazy idea. Patricia had already said, yep, the Lexicon studio will run with it with you. So I had my venue, I had no money, I didn't have a team, and a couple of months to go. Spoke to Sue, and exactly. I said, the studio is empty in the morning. You can't have an empty studio in the morning because it's a waste. It's a wasted opportunity. What can we do? If I can get approval from TED to include a few young speakers, can we include that? The answer was yes, but only as part of the main event. Within a very short space of time, we had them together in the first year. That taught us a huge amount. It taught us we had double the amount of work, and there they are, our first years, 2018. They were amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah.
I have to come in here, Janie, and honour you. Leave the slide up there, please, Eamon, if you wouldn't mind, because I just think it's gorgeous. You know, straight away you realise that there was a missed opportunity here by TED, dare I say it, and you decided to act upon it. And we're back to you listening to the universe and acting, you know, what is it? Ready, fire, aim. And you've done that. And do you know the difference that you've made to these kids here? Like, they're at their tender young ages, they're TEDx talkers. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. And it's grown and grown. And I suppose what that really showed me, Colm, was the need that there's a gap between what used to be, if you like, the young ones in our communities and the elders. It is about this cross-generational learning. It's the sharing of the experience. And it saddens me to think that, you know, you reach a certain age that you do become invisible and the opportunities are less, which is probably why I suppose I've stayed self-employed, because I don't think anyone would ever employ me. Certainly wasn't the case when I came to Ireland back in 1994. You know, I was offered a phone, go and make some money, and then we might think about employing you. No. But it is taking that wisdom, and what's happened in year 2, 2019, we saw that even more. There was speakers like yourself, and people gave time to the younger ones. And this year, it's building on that again, but then came COVID. So we've started on Zoom, which is very tricky for coaching, can be done, but you miss the magic of being in the room, back to the magic of being live, being together. You need that human connection.
If I may come in here, Janie, because I suppose you give me license to come in and talk about my TEDx experience, just briefly, just to paint a picture here. Janie had some of those young change makers come in and talk to the adult group, right? And tell us to calm our nerves and tell us what to do when we're standing on the red dot. I mean, that's transformational stuff. Young kids coming in and teaching us, you know, wonderful, that they had the confidence to do that. 2 other experiences that I experienced, 3 actually. One was working with you and the team, because Janie literally did help us weave our story and craft our story and guided us and loved us through the process. Second was the kids coming in to help us. One of whom had been a TEDx talker, I think in 2018, I think, or perhaps earlier, you can confirm this, who got, there's talk of a movie. There's talk of a movie on the back of that. And Janie, if you're able to, you might just touch on that. I think that's a great story. And then the third element was Janie brought in the first deaf speaker who came in and signed the entire talk, which is outstanding. It's also where the Coffee at 11 Bula Bus was born, is through this woman here and the work. So Janie, I just want to honour you for that experience for me. Thank you. And it's been a huge part, by the way, of what's happened here. So thank you for that. Can you touch on some of those elements that I've just mentioned there? Would you mind?
Not at all. You know, as I say, things just grow. I mean, we did want, I'll just start with Joanne Chester, our deaf speaker. I had seen something in the Irish Times magazine about an RTE program, London Calling. And there were different people who went over to London to work because they couldn't get work here because they were deaf. And Joanne was one of those who was in the RTE documentary that came from the article, London Calling, and she worked with young people and couldn't get work here, or was thinking maybe I should go over to London. And I just thought, this is wrong. you know, and TEDx, the goal has always been about inclusion, creating a better community, a better everything because of that community. And I just got in touch with Joanne, and, you know, your first thought is, okay, how do we do this? And it taught me a huge amount. I had the gift of speech. I was able to connect, and how do I talk to her? I thought, okay, work this out. Went back and got extra funding for the interpreters, because in the first year it was the election of Michael Higgins as our president. Couldn't get anybody to sign, even if you had the money. Year 2, I thought we're going to have all of our talks signed. So that was the first. But also what it did was give me the opportunity to work coaching a deaf person with the help of interpreters. So again, it's like a multi-layered learning, because it's not just crafting and weaving her story and hitting all the right notes for her and her family, the community, for the listeners, but also then coaching and working with the interpreters, because one of them was her voice, and allowing that to unfold. So great learning there, great learning, because we do collaborative coaching, so people could then, if you like, help her and give her different perspectives, but also all of the speakers to learn. They had to hit another audience as well, because otherwise you really are landing on deaf ears.
Quite literally. It was a phenomenal experience anyway, to be involved with TEDx.
And that's an area that another, if you like, avenue that I want to pursue, because it's worthwhile work. But the other area, Colm, is very much working with youngsters, bridging this gap that is there, the need to talk. They are incredibly brave. It's, you know, I won't talk about this year's speakers but there are kids from the 2 years who have struggled with mental illness, suicide, adoption. This is serious stuff. And by helping them articulate, to vocalize their stories, they own it. And yeah, I've no doubt in some way it ticks the boxes for me, because at different places I'm identifying with it. And I think I said to you at one point, you know, I've had a lot, I've lost a lot, but my life's ever richer. This is what life's about.
Kathy Mera and came on the back of Sarah Ward starting the Bula bus there. This is what life is about. And you're exactly where the universe needs you to be, Janie Lazar. You know, I think it's oozing out of you. Yeah, there's you see the story in the individual before they even know they have a story, and you're helping them tell that story. And it's just it's a gift. So well done you, and you're listening. And I love the idea that it's ready, fire, aim for you all the time. I want a deaf speaker. How am I going to do that? Doesn't matter. Let's put it out there. I want to work with children. How are we going to do that? Doesn't matter. Let's put it out there. And you've managed to make it happen every time. It's gorgeous to witness. I would touch on that young speaker who there was.
Sorry, yes, I got.
Wouldn't mind, because fascinating.
Oh, Neve, and it's actually, thank you for that prompt, because Young ChangeMakers is something that is evolving out of TEDx as well, because what we do, we invite if you like, the speakers from the year before to come back and be a peer mentor. So they then learn by sitting in on things, they've got their own collaborative group, which I'm not part of, so they have to self-organize, and, you know, I tell them that this person hasn't responded, that person hasn't, and what are you going to do about it? They learn how to give critical feedback. So Neve was one of those. Neve and Lauren from that first year came back, and both of their talks are fantastic. Neve's she spoke about young girls with Asperger's, and she has Asperger's herself. It is a talk that is worthy of a TED talk. And what TED do is they keep an eye out, and if you hit so many views, your talk is I think that's how it works. And just the numbers were going up and up and up. I mean, somebody could probably Google now while we're talking, but at the last count, I think she had over 450,000 people who had viewed it. But again, I come back, it's not about the numbers. If you can change one life only, if you've helped somebody, and there are kids as well who come into TEDx because, you know, we have a larger group at the beginning, some of them drop out, they get the benefit of the coaching, so it's not dropping out, they've taken what they needed at that time, but they haven't gone all the way. But if any of the talks can just change one life, and particularly if you're talking about suicide as a youngster, if you get 2 views, 1 view, you've effectively given that gift of life.
Yeah, you really have, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful. Neve's story, by the way, Janie, what's the web address that people can go to see these wonderful talks?
Sorry, TEDx Dunlaoughaire.ie.
So check out Neve's. But didn't a movie opportunity?
It did indeed. We had messages in, because a lot of them, because they're under 18 and we have to get parental permissions and everything else. The inquiry from TED came in to us saying there's a casting agent who was, I can't say the film. It didn't actually come to something in the end, and they were prepared to change the sex of the star, because it would lead to stardom, to a girl. And we matched them up, put them in contact, and she did video auditions, and again, just showing the type of girl Neve is. She said, just the fact that somebody would want to talk to me, and they got all excited, and her mum and dad, and it just gave them such a buzz. And she said, just to have had that experience. And she's now going on to college, but she's back as one of the peer mentors with Lauren and 2 of last year's speakers.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
It's great. It's just fabulous, fabulous. You see, you've no idea the difference you can make. Any of us, no idea doing what we do naturally. We've no idea what threads get woven together. But the important thing is, I believe, and this is what you live every day, we need to do what we can with what we have from where we are. And you do that every single day. And you keep going. You keep going. It's wonderful. We wish you every and continued success. Can we jump forward, or perhaps in parallel, to the Celebrant Janie?
Again, it was, I suppose, thank you. I was brought up as within a Jewish family. My mother, both my parents kept traditions, but as I say, I was if you like, the baby that arrived late. The big difference between my sisters: when I arrived, my parents were moving towards separation, and that Jewish tradition didn't carry on. So over the years, through different experiences, I kept questioning different things, and without going to religious beliefs, I just really felt that, I suppose, which as my life has demonstrated, it's about now. I don't know that there is a God. I respect everybody else's views on that. And that's part of me having become a humanist. I'm a humanist at heart. I believe it's about now, it's about inclusion, it's about making every day matter. It's what you do in your life. It's all of those things. It's about making moments matter. And that was how the whole thing with ceremonies started with me. And it was using a skill that I recognized I had. And it came about by accident, like a lot of different things. People asked me to start doing ceremonies, and I enjoyed them. But this was a lovely couple in West Cork, and they both had children from early marriages. So it was a coming together of one family, a magical day. but the ceremonies themselves, they vary. And what I found was, to me, it's less about the weddings. In fact, now I take on very few weddings. It was the other ceremonies in life, because life is about that cycle. And it's more the end of life that matters most. Maybe because I'm getting closer to that myself, having dodged the silver bullets.
Don't be going all morbid. Don't be going.
Oh, no, not at all. It was a friend of mine who has motor neuron.
Okay.
And he was chatting, and he's always been a great supporter. And I said, you've actually given me another idea for a ceremony that I have since gone on to do with very special friends and families. And that's While I'm Still Here. And he said to me, why shouldn't I be at my own party? Now, we've not yet done a special day for him, but it's been something that is incredibly healing. And it takes, a lot of celebrants don't like to do memorials, which is going to become very, very special after COVID, because people haven't been able to express their grief. But I always believe it's about celebrating life. And that's what a memorial ceremony does. That's what While I'm Still Here, and I just called it Wish, because it's what I wish for you. And for my friend Roland, it's what he wishes for his grandchildren. It's about whether it's a marriage a second time round. And, you know, I say never. You know, maybe that's around the corner for me, who knows? Because, you know, life is for sharing. It's all the precious moments that you've created on days, every day throughout COVID. I'm listening to Eddie yesterday. You know, I just, my heart was bursting. And there was one thing in particular in his story, or not his story, of the children who are undocumented. And he was giving them the lift, obviously, but that came out wrongly, the gift of being validated, that their lives mattered enough to be documented. Wonderful.
Yeah, well, wonderful, Janie. And thank you for honouring Eddie and his story yesterday.
And that's what the ceremonies are, right? You know, they just, everyone shares. It's back to the group dynamic, being with people on whatever occasion.
It's a lovely idea. Wish while I'm still here. I mean, who'd have thought? Like, it's just gorgeous. Challenging, but gorgeous. Yeah. I came across, just on a slightly lighter note, I was in New York there 2 years ago, I think, and anyway, ended up in this bar late one evening with the group, and the barmaid was from Dublin, so I was chat with her, and so I said, what are you doing, living and working in New York? She said, well, clearly I'm working here in the bar, but she says, I run my own business. And I said, what's that? She says, I'm the glam reaper, right? I said, what? She said, I'm the glam reaper, right? And so she decided, there's wisdom in this, she decided that people put huge amount of effort into planning their weddings, right? And they bring in wedding planners and whatnot, but a funeral, a celebration of life, could also do with an organizer, you know, somebody to take all the horse jockeying around to get the day put together so people can actually be there in the moment. I just thought it was fascinating. So we've got the glam reaper on one side and we've got Wish on the other side, and they're both beautiful. And Janie Lazar, you're beautiful, beautiful soul, and thank you for coming in to the coffee shop today and joining us on the Coffee at 11 show.
You.
And it's just lovely to have had you here. Janie, do you mind, Eamon's going to put up, oh, there you go, look at that. Isn't that just, Janie, where was that picture taken? What's the moment?
I think it was actually here in the cottage. And it's like a fallback pose. It's just, I think somebody just happened to take it and send it to me.
It's just gorgeous. And it's the real you, and you're doing it as you speak to us.
It's And at first was somebody said to me, why are you using that? There are better ones. You're pushing your face up and it's all got wrinkles. And I said, but actually, I'm glad I'm alive. Wrinkles are part of getting older. Your body is the way it is. That's who I am. That's who I am. So I'm finally beginning to claim that space. Yeah.
Lovely, Janie Lazar. Thank you for that, Eamon. Thank you for that. Thank you for helping us with those images. Just gorgeous. We're going to go to Q&A from the floor in just a second, Janie, if you don't mind, because it's been just a lovely conversation. Thank you for joining us this morning. Have you one tip? Have you one tip? And it's not even about getting through COVID anymore, because I'm sensing here in Ireland we're almost through it. But what would you say to somebody out there? What would you say? Look after yourself best by doing this blah, whatever that blah might be for you.
Yeah, no hesitation at all. It's whichever way you want to word it, but it's take the time to make the time.
Okay, can you say that one more time?
Yeah, it's take the time to make the time. Or it could be make the time to take the time. It works either way, but it's the one thing that I keep coming back to. And I'm learning that now. As I say, COVID gave me the time that I needed. It was the kick up the bottom to get my own thoughts and life in order. And it is, first of all, for yourself, but more important, or as importantly, for other people. For me, if there's a knock at the cottage door, unless I've got a train to catch or a deadline and I refuse ever to be late or to let somebody down, I'll always make the time, because I may never get that chance again with that person. You don't know what's going on in people's lives, where they're at. And those moments are precious. Those moments are precious. So make the time. Take the time to make the time. Make the time to take the time.
Beautiful. Rapturous silent applause in the cafe here today. Rapturous silent applause. By the way, what is it about cottages in South County Dublin, ladies? Janie's cottage and Biddy's cottage. What's the story? All right, Janie. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to open it up to comment or question from the floor. Who'd like to pop in and say hello to this lovely lady? Sarah Ward, lovely to see you.
Jenny, I thoroughly enjoyed your talk, and I think you're an absolute wonderful woman. What touched me most was what you're doing for young people, because I think they're very vulnerable at the moment, and I think that you're giving them a voice which is a lifesaver. I think that they basically, I think they're far more intelligent. I don't think they give themselves enough credit for how intelligent they are. And I think you're bringing that out in them. And I think you're making them realize they have a voice, they are intelligent, and they're well able to do stuff. And I think that is a lifesaver. Kids, I think, because they go through such things like anxiety, depression, whatever, it's all that stuff they keep inside. And when they get it out, that's what, and I think you're gold dust. I think you should really, 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 really know that you are a fantastic lady. You really are. Well done. Well done.
And they teach me so much. They really do. Yeah. They're amazing.
Yeah, yeah, they are. They're wonderful. Young people are amazing, I think, but they need you to bring that out in them, because they don't know how to do it themselves. I think that is gold dust. Well done. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Absolutely, you're meant to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Isn't that just gorgeous, Sarah Ward? Thank you for that. Just lovely. And lovely validation for Janie and the work she does and who she is as an individual. So thank you for that, Sarah. Going to go to Princess Shelley, as we always do. Princess Shelley.
Hey everybody, you're certainly keeping me on my toes here. Sometime since the 50-something show, everybody's discovered that speech bubble and they just fly in. So I must apologise if I don't get to everybody. I'm certainly on my very tippy toes. keeping an eye on the cafe. Janie, thank you for a lovely interview. I love, as so many people are saying, the inflection in your voice. And I know you're a speaker, it's what you do, but as you bring us through the story, your voice changes, and I love it. It really is beautiful, and Bridget is agreeing with me there. We started off the comments. Colm said hello to Roweda, who's joining us at lunchtime in Saudi Arabia, and they said thank you, Colm, for that. And then Pascal Derrien, who is he was a previous guest on our show, and when we saw your beautiful picture in Paris, Janie, he said that's his hometown. So. So you can give them a wave there, Pascal. He was on the show a number of weeks ago. So it's lovely to see you pop back into the cafe again afterwards. He mentioned La Ville des Lumières, so apologies if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. But yes, so that picture was nice for him. And also at the start as well, Janie, the picture of you with the pigeons. James Finnegan, thanks for being here, James. And I love the laugh that you do as well during the interviews and the coffee at 11. I love that you're so engaged with us. And James said that the picture of you with the pigeons brought back instant, precious memories of his parents bringing him to feed the pigeons in Trafalgar Square. So I love that that you've been there with us today, and you've relived that, James. He came a little bit later on as well to say, when you spoke about the group magic, he said the group magic is where magic happens, and James came in later to say that, and then he said we may not be perfect, but we're gloriously imperfect. So again, coming all the way through the conversation with us for that. Thank you very much for that, James. And then Amanda Delaney. Hi, Amanda. Give us all a wave. We can and we will. Another guest, previous guest on the show. Thanks for being here, Amanda. Popped a good few comments in that she doesn't know anybody as humble and as the beautiful Janie, she said. So, and she just mentioned while you were talking that teaching and doing are two different things, and that you were at one stage there throughout your story making her quite tearful. So she was swelling in the eyes there, and that you're a huge ambassador for inclusion and you're growing leaders. So she's grateful for that, all the work you're doing there. So isn't that lovely, Janie? Aren't you getting such lovely comments? So Dee mentioned, when will I know inside me that I'm good enough? 25 years teaching personal development, and I still say no, can't say no. So that's Dee Keogh. Thanks for being here, Dee, and thank you for your comment. Barbara says, wow, I love this. Listen, when you were saying that a little bit earlier on. I'm only one or two more I think I'll have time for. And Kristen, who joins us in from Malmo in Sweden, says, you had my full confidence and attention from the very start. This is when you were discussing about being good enough. She popped this in quite early on during our conversation today. She had my full confidence and attention from the very start by showing that you were a little nervous and uncomfortable with this, in spite of you being such a well-qualified and speaker and communicator. I love your pace and your humble attitude, and I want to hear more from you. And that was followed by lots of little heart emojis. So thank you so much for that. Kathy, who's joining us, we're so international, aren't we? Cosmopolitan. Kathy in New Hampshire, she's joining us. It's almost 7 a.m. there now, I think. And Kathy says, everyone has a story worth telling. Thanks for giving the confidence to people to tell the stories that are worth telling. So thanks for that, Kathy. And Donal, who was in our Blooms Day this week and gave us a great show as well, says, accept help. Some of us have to learn this. And he also said later on that when you said one life only, a motto for all teachers. So thank you for that, Donal. And finally, Donach in Scotland. Hi, Donach, another previous guest. Thanks for being here. Stolen moments make memories. So thank you for that. There was lots and lots more. Donach also said, my mother said there's always something good around the corner. So I think that was when you were saying what you had been through last year. Now, before I hand back to Colm, everybody, you know, we were talking about time, and we were talking about the biggest gift that it's someone you can get. And I always say that as well. We'll always get more money, and we'll always get more clothes, and everybody's queuing up around all the shops that are reopening, but we'll never ever get today back. And not only will we not get today back, today, everybody, is Janie's anniversary of her arrival into the world. Her birthday. So I have a little candle here that you're going to blow out. It even smells lovely. And I want to see, and now I'm going to know, I'm not sure if Colm or Eamon's going to unmute you all. I'm going to sing with you. You can sing, I'll know if you're singing, if you're miming. So even if you remain muted, I'd like us all to sing a very happy birthday to Janie, and she's going to blow out this candle and she's going to make a wish. Okay? The key, I'm in a choir, so I usually sing with a group, and if we don't start too high up, we should be okay. Everybody, 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Janie. Happy birthday to you. Blow out the candle, Janie. Hip hip hooray! Happy birthday, Janie. And with that, I'm happy to hand you to Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Princess Shelley, thank you. Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Oh dear, dear, dear. See, I couldn't hold it, Bridget. I couldn't hold it. They've popped out again.
Okay, Princess Shelley, legend. People get you for bookings, Princess Shelley? That was gorgeous. So there you go, Janie. There's the first.
I know.
No, we could.
It's extraordinary to be here. You know, you work with people all the time. You're priming them, and I'm the world's best trumpeter of other people. I just, yeah. It's again. This is where the magic happens. As I've listened to beautiful stories, wonderful people, and you realise there's so much good in the world, so much good.
And you're part of that. Don't ever forget that. Listen, no, it's been an absolute joy having you here today. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you know, you said it perfectly well there, Janie. You're a wonderful trumpeter of other people, but somewhat to the detriment of your own beauty and brilliance and place in the world. And so it took me some time to convince her to come on the show. Eventually, we decided upon a particular date, right? And I can't remember. It was pick a number between such and such, and she picked a number. And the date of whatever number she picked, the show was going to land on the 9th, I think it was, of June. When I said that, the 9th of June, she said, if it was the 19th, it would be my birthday. So I said, right.
And I realised I'd opened my big mouth too soon.
That's the day. So, of course, we've been plotting and planning the happy birthday piece for some time. So Shelley pulled it off beautifully. Candle was a touch like that. Pay raise stuff. All right, listen, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous show today. Thank you for being here all. Let me tell you before I let you all go for the weekend. I'm delighted it's the weekend as well. Lovely way to finish the week. Thank you, Janie. But what's happening on Monday, a friend of mine, John Loftus is his name. John's a really interesting man because he almost died many years ago. He ended up having a kidney transplant, but he got to the point where it was touch and go. And but he's come through that, thankfully, and come out the far side, and has had a very rich life thereafter, albeit challenged with the complications that come with that. But I'd be honoured if you'd come in and honour John with your presence on Monday if you've got time. That'd be lovely. Fascinating guy in his 70s, running a business, but running on extra time, dare I say it, because of his situation. So great guy, great story, and a wonderful backstory before all that anyway, which includes Joe Dolan, right? So come in if you, and it also includes a reference to Limerick, You're a Lady, and his input into that iconic song. Okay, that's it. Let me thank Princess Shelley for producing today's show. Princess Shelley, lovely. Eamon Smith, aka the Monk, and now the Projectionist Supreme. Thanks for being here and doing that and carrying it off beautifully. Katrina O'Brien, who's joined us there late in the day, but in advance for the lovely work Katrina does in topping and tailing this, put it out to our growing international audience. You do the bust there. And I'd like to thank wigwam.ie SME Peer Support for their ongoing support. And with that, I'll bring the show to a close on this lovely Friday by saying, Janie Lazar, namaste.
Namaste.